The scale of McDonald's. I mean, I remember being at your hamburger university and you telling me if you added, like all the other fast food restaurants, they wouldn't quite equal the scale of McDonald's. Did I get that right?
Roughly true.
So that's just huge, right? But how is McDonald's constructed? I mean, one of the things that I think is important before we get into some of the details is this sort of three-legged stool of McDonald's business model.
Well, I'd like to get you and others here to think about McDonald's differently. Sure, we're big brand. We're in 118 countries. You know, we serve 69 million people a day, so that's a lot of people. We have 1.7 million people that work for McDonald's. So that's how I think most people view us. They view us as this big, monolithic, centralized system of we can produce the same thing the same way everywhere. The reality, I would like you to think of McDonald's more, we call it the three-legged stool. It's owner-operators, by the way, which make 85% of our system. So we are the world's largest small business. Because at the end of the day, we're owned and operated by independent business people. I have 5,500 presidents of their business. They may own 3 or 5 restaurants, and they pay my salary. I work for them. We work for them at McDonald's. So our owner-operators are one part of that three-legged stool. They have a lot of power in our system. I would challenge anybody to tell me a company that is more democratic than McDonald's. Because anything we do, advertising, for example, whatever we decide to do on advertising, our owner-operators have to vote on that. And it has to have a 3/4 vote in order for you to see anything on print or TV. You know, so that means we can't dictate on high what's going to happen in Peoria, Illinois. You know, it's going to come through a lot of democratic process to get owner-operators. And tying it to sustainability, I think we have, it makes our journey interesting, but it makes the destination wonderful. Because if you can convince, and our goal is the mainstream sustainability, if you can get all of our owner-operators to believe in it, it's forever sustainable. Anyway, so that's one leg. The supply chain. We have a very autonomous, independent supply chain that is part of this three-legged stool. We consider we're all equal in the success of the company. And we are not transactional in how we work with our supply chain. We are just totally dedicated to long-term relationships. Most of our suppliers have been with us for decades, and they're in it for the long haul to serve our needs. And almost all of our work is done by handshake. So I'm just curious, how many supply chain structures have that, you just agree on business over a handshake and trust and that type of thing. And then you got people like me that are the company people, and especially people like me in our role at the global office is to work with what we call freedom within a framework. And because we believe in a lot of freedom on everything, we're very decentralized, as I was describing. And so we set this framework at global as to what our beliefs are, what our values are, what our main strategies and priorities are. But we leave a lot of leeway for freedom because the reason we're successful, we believe, is that we're very entrepreneurial.
So, one of the other things that yesterday I talked with Dave Stangus and Todd Arbogast about CEO transition. And there have been a few of those over the past years at McDonald's, and just recently a new CEO there. And I know that you sort of took a different approach at how to engage him and some of the other top management. And I think people here might like to hear what you did last summer in terms of trying to really engage it and move sustainability further in McDonald's.
Well, I would have been glad to be on your panel yesterday. Love Dave, love Todd, and I've gone through a great CEO change because Don Thompson has made this whole area one of his platforms of leadership. So he truly sees this as a way of growing our business, and we're defining sustainability these days through his impetus and leadership. We're gonna grow our business by making a positive difference in the world. And I would say historically, what we've done at McDonald's and the stuff I've been working on this stuff for a couple decades. We've been working on the right side of that phrase I just said. We've been trying to make a difference in the world. but it's never really been strategically linked per se to growing our business. And so Don has a belief that this CSR sustainability field should be high level. So since he's come on board about a year ago, he's made it part of our brand ambition. I'm not going to bore you with that, but at least internally, hopefully you'll believe in us in the future, that we're a brand that provides good food, with good people and being a good neighbor. And there's elements of how we define that. So we have a lot of aspirations of how we want our brand to be. And he's been a leader on baking in sustainability into our brand future. He's really wanted to get our top management aligned around what we believe in. So what Don asked for, so he's made it a topic of every senior leadership team meeting that we have with our top leaders. We're on the agenda. We're part of the top 5 things that he has on every agenda. Last summer, this would be my nomination for one great idea. And first of all, I will credit the idea to Coca-Cola, because I stole their idea and we kind of did it a little bit differently for McDonald's. But it's probably the most impactful thing I've ever done at McDonald's. So that's why I want to share it with you.
So that's even better than the styrofoam.
I think so.
packaging. Okay.
Although impactful in terms of, I'm estimating it's impactful for the future. Because you can do tactical things like changing a package and have sustainable fish, and these are programs that are phenomenal. But if you get your leadership team to be behind it, that's where you want to be, at least in my view. And so he said, they have a 2-day, all of our top officers from around the world come in every year, the top 50 people. He wanted, of a 2-day meeting, he wanted a half day on CSR and sustainability. So the idea I stole from Coke is they had a similar meeting, and they invited me to be on a panel with Disney, WWF, and Walmart. And we spoke to their leadership, and it was moderated by Bea Perez, and I saw this chance where she was talking about all these things through our voices to their top 90 leadership at Coca-Cola, and I witnessed firsthand what a difference that experience made for their leadership. So I came back and I said, this is how we are going to do it for McDonald's. So what we did a little bit differently is we organized 2 panels, one with corporate leaders from Walmart, Coca-Cola, Unilever, and the head of BSR were there. Then we had another panel of NGOs, including the ex-executive director for Greenpeace International, including the head of WWF, and a couple of others. So this 2-hour set of panel and all the Q&A and the sessions, it was unbelievable. I could have done work for 2 years that was not as good as the work done in that 4 hours. It ended up being a 4-hour segment. Why was it impactful? Because one of the executive VPs caught up with me later. He said, Bob, if the leadership was 20% into what CSR and sustainability is for the company coming into the meeting, they walked away 120% convinced. The number 2 guy I saw in the hallway said, I've never really realized how important this stuff is to our company. And probably most importantly, it changed and got us around substantive changes in our business. So for instance, of the 8 kind of people that we had, and this is all independently moderated, of the 8 people, one of the questions that we kind of planted in to the Q&A was, hey, if you were CEO for a day, what would be the one change you would make at McDonald's? So guess what 7 out of the 8 people said? They said, you need to do something about beef. Beef needs to be more sustainable. Beef is like what McDonald's is all about. We know it's a challenge, but you could use your size and leverage to make beef more sustainable. That really had a big impact. So since then, we've been able to get the funding and a budget, and that is our number 1 priority. We're going at more to come. I'm just giving you a little bit of a tip of the iceberg. More to come later in the year on that. And the other thing that came out of it was the alignment and the governance structure for success. So out of that came, because he heard from all these other companies how they've embedded it. A lot of them have people reporting into the CEO, and so we've changed our structure at McDonald's to, I now report into an office that goes right into the CEO. We created a global sustainability board with top officers around the world. We have 5 pillars of CSR. It's food, menu, nutrition is one pillar, sourcing is another, people, community, and planet defined as our impacts in the restaurant. So those are our 5 pillars. And So, our global sustainability board has officers that head up all that for governance into the future. So yeah, it was really the most impactful thing I've probably ever done. I hope it is anyway. I'm betting on it having a big impact for future years anyway.
So while we're on that topic of governance and structure, you've added a number of employees, both directly on your staff, but also embedding them in other places within the company. Can you talk a little bit about that strategy?
So Don Thompson asked that we come up with a whole new way of looking at CSR and sustainability. We've been working on that for over a year. We'll be talking more publicly about this later this year. So I was kind of wondering, like, did he really mean it? Like, I don't mean to be questioning him, but when you really mean it is when you ask for resources. So when we came through the budgeting cycle at the end of last year, we said, well, hey, we have all these ambitions and we're setting goals and targets. And, if you look at McDonald's, we think we've done a lot of good things, but providing measures and getting data, I'm sure all of you struggle with these things. It's a tough system, and only imagine, an owner-operator-based system where you have to gather in data. So, we needed lots of money to set up data systems. We had gaps in terms of resources of people to lead these things. So we put it in. We put it in the budget and said, hey, we need X amount of people, both within my department and probably more importantly in other departments. So we partnered with other departments under this broad platform and came in together, the senior management, and said, supply chain. Probably one of our biggest influences in the world is through supply chain, and we've had a really good focus there. But you know what? If we're going to do all these things on beef that we got to have another person there. So we now have a second person that's totally dedicated, that's housed in supply chain. We came in that together. We hired an additional leader on nutrition for our company, and we partnered with our menu team to propose that. And that person is dotted line into me, but they report into menu. What's really interesting is, so many of these issues are legal. I'm not sure how much the legal teams are in your teams, but they're really important for us. And I say that in a very positive sense. I like to think of, there's not so many companies like us that are just unbelievably transparent. I mean, we're in every street corner, and you can who we are is what you see. And you can't hide. And everything we do has to be totally buttoned up, totally accurate, so they're hiring a counsel now that's going to be just dedicated to CSR and sustainability as legal counsel for our team. We've added some people on our team because we're adding a data type manager and a reporting manager. So we're getting what we asked for. So I got a lot of work to do to deliver. I would consider us now more of a business function, and since I've been working on it a long time, I was trying to think of how to compare it. I feel like I've been brought from I like baseball, so I always felt like I was in the bullpen, like I was a relief pitcher or something like that. Like when there's trouble, let's go talk to Bob and his team, and kind of a risk manager. And now I feel like we're in the infield, or like we're a catcher, we're a pitcher, we're in the middle of the mix,
Okay, I'll skip the baseball metaphor. So one thing we talked about last night is, I remember this comedian, Don Novello, once had a line. He said, I looked at your restaurant and I saw that 83 billion people had been served. How many more do you have to go? And the thing that we haven't talked a lot about at this conference is the end consumer. And so how has all of this changed in terms of, do consumers care about McDonald's being more sustainable? And, how is this changing the conversation for you?
Yeah, consumers, they really care way more than I think one would want to believe, So all of our research shows that our brand, we call it brand health, brand trust, which is so important to our business, that the CSR factors, we have about 40 factors that add up to brand health. About half of those you can directly relate to CSR and sustainability. And our research shows that the consumers care a lot. Do they translate that into behavior and decision making? Not necessarily. So Do they have high expectations of us? Yes. Do we deliver on those expectations? No. Do they want to see us do more? Yes. And they leave it up to us to figure it out. They don't tell us to get out of gestation stalls. They don't tell us to use less antibiotics. They don't tell us to use renewable energy. They're not at that level of demand. But we think the future is going to have consumers more engaged in actual behavior. That's how we see the future. You're seeing it in pockets of McDonald's around the world. We're putting on, we have sustainable coffee in Europe, and it's all over the packaging and the POP in the restaurants. We have organic milk in the UK. And I want to make a big pitch today. So this is my crass commercialization here of selling what we do. But this past couple weeks now, we've gone into a whole new category that's kind of my nirvana for sustainability, because we're not going to have a sustainability effort unless the consumer is really engaged. So sometimes I think we're fooling ourselves to think that we do all this work, and I'm in enough meetings with all my peers, and we all kind of, especially if we're in a down mode, you kind of get like, oh, why doesn't the consumer act on this more, and why is there only 10 to 20% of consumers that act upon this? Why isn't it more? So finally, we've developed sustainable fish for a long, long time. We started working on this in 1999. And I can tell you that story if you're interested, but the bottom line is, after all the years of working with suppliers, working with Conservation International, setting standards, working with MSC, and doing all that legwork, we finally, 2 weeks ago, brought it to the consumer in the United States through our marketing program. And it's the first program that we've actually ever, because usually people say to me, Bob, why doesn't McDonald's tell more people what you're doing? Because we don't tell many people what we're doing. And so now we're saying, hey, everybody, it's being advertised, it's on print ads, and I have a coupon for every one of you that is interested for a sustainable fish sandwich or fish bites, which are delicious at McDonald's. They are at the registration counter waiting for you. And I do a blog called Open for Discussion. And I challenged in my blog that people say, and there's skeptics out there. I like your interview from before, Joel, about the guy saying there's a lot of skepticism out there. Hey, we're putting it out there. So come on, people. If you can all tweet this to everybody you know to go and buy fish at McDonald's, we need to have more people making a difference in this area, spending their dollars for it.
So now MSC is Marine Stewardship Council, in case people don't get it. So what were some of the challenges? I mean, 1999 to today. I know when we ate at Rick Moonan's restaurant, you talked a little bit about this. So you operate at such a scale. How difficult is it to get something like MSC certified worldwide?
Well, every commodity is different that we buy. Fish happens to be a global thing that you could actually manage globally. Other products aren't that way, so you have to look at each one differently. But what's really interesting about the fish journey is how the way we work with suppliers is totally through collaboration. We don't browbeat them. We don't tell them they have to do anything. We say, hey, let's figure out together how to have sustainable fish. So when we invited Conservation, get a kick out of this. So we invited Conservation International to we have an annual fish forum meeting with all of our fish suppliers. We had this meeting in 1999 in Seattle, which was the headquarters of the protests against anti-globalization, and McDonald's is a symbol of all that. Our windows are getting broken, et cetera, et cetera. So all of our fish suppliers are saying, we don't want to work with Conservation International. We don't want a radical group, coming into our meetings. I'm like, holy cow, if they think they're radical, it's just like. And I was just speaking to somebody last night that had a similar experience just the other day. Sometimes I wonder how far we advance. When you get deeper into the supply chain, there still is this thing that kind of all NGOs are radicals, which is by far not the case. So they were very resistant towards doing it, which is part of the hurdle of getting them. So we forced them to work together, and before you know it, they're best friends. They developed some standards, work with MSC, and we've come a long way to integrate it. So I think that's the scale. Your question about scale, it's different for everything that we buy. We're trying. It's not quite an environmental issue, but we made an announcement a year ago to get out of gestation stalls. for sows, and sows are the mother pigs. And they live their whole lives basically in these crates, and they can't move around, and it's just something that we don't believe in. And that was a first step for us to really make a time-bound commitment to get out of something which is 4 steps removed from us. So really the biggest challenge for us is almost all the big, huge sustainability impacts and things we buy are usually 3 to 4 steps removed from us. I mean, we buy hamburgers from people that make the patties. They buy it from the slaughterhouse. They buy it from the feedlots. They buy it from a broker. They buy it from the calf producer. So, and it's just, you can look at it and say that's a tough place to influence, but there are ways to influence it. So you just have to figure out how to use your size, leverage brand, work with others to make something happen.
So let's move from consumers next up the chain to the owner-operators. And you had a wonderful McDonald's at the Olympic Village last year in London that got taken down and then rebuilt somewhere else. And I've noticed a lot of rebuilding of McDonald's around, at least around the U.S. So how are the owner-operators looking at this? Is this a tax? Do you have to convince them to embrace rebuilding or some of the other practices you want them to address?
Well, from the owner-operator perspective, and when I speak to owner-operator groups within McDonald's, what they don't realize is if they're a perfect owner-operator, as we would define, they are being phenomenally sustainable. They just don't know it. So, part of what we're trying to do is let them know that when they follow, and by the way, like the number one environmental issue for McDonald's is our use of energy. And in the United States, our energy bill is around $800 million a year. So not a whole lot of companies spend that much on energy, do they? So they think they're working on energy. By the way, we have energy procedures and energy manuals. We have all types of energy technology and energy efficiency. But when they're doing it, they think they're just doing it to save costs. And then we tell them, you know what? You and your people need to know you are actually making a difference for one of the biggest issues of our times, reducing and becoming more energy efficient, reducing our carbon footprint, et cetera. So really, it's a lot of education. People is a big part of our sustainability effort. We get criticized for being a McJob, but the fact is we are, on the positive side, we're a place that brings in people that are untrained. We train them. We give them great opportunity to grow in the company, which is truthful, whether it's within McDonald's or somewhere else. And a big part of their job is treating people right and training them. We invest over $1 billion in training our people. It's just a huge commitment we have. So on buildings, it is a co-relationship. So when you build a McDonald's building, it's kind of half the company. We own the property, we own the building. The owner-operators own the equipment. Roughly speaking, it's about half and half money-wise. So yes, we need to convince them that getting the higher level of energy efficiency equipment, and in general, by the way, we don't make it mandatory to a large degree. We make some things mandatory, but some of these things are optional. So that gets into letting them know that please pick, we call it the green package for your buildings and not the other packages.
Now you have some awards both for owner-operators and for suppliers. So, I think you mentioned, not in these words, that you're much more inclined to use carrots than sticks when dealing with both. So how did that come about, and how effective is that? I think you've published at least 2 years of that.
It's the more. I love the artist. Whoever, if he's here, I've always said that you got to have fun with this stuff, and I think our whole field is a little bit too somber sometimes. and McDonald's, we're a brand that's fun. And our vision of if we're going to make CSR and sustainability, fun, we're going to have it be a positive experience. The doom and gloom just doesn't work at all. So we stay away from that. It's just not a good strategy. So yes, lots of carrots. It's unbelievable. So when we do a thing called best of green, best of sustainable supply. So we do them on a cycle now every 18 months. And it's a lot of effort. We're in 118 countries. So we have a system that we organize for all the entries. And there's lots of reasons how we have categories. The amount of nominations that we get is phenomenal, both from our restaurants around the world and supply chain. And then we give out awards and recognitions. So when we go to a supplier now, it's just so, I just feel so like proud when we go to a big supplier like Smithfield or Coca-Cola or somebody like that, Cargill, and in their lobby, it has a plaque, McDonald's, best of sustainable supply. I was reading the annual report from Smithfield Foods the other day on sustainability, and they had it as one of their recognitions, being recognized by McDonald's as one of their best of sustainable supply. I think you get a lot more going that way, versus the stick.
Okay, so I promised Bob, do we have microphones around? You can start getting up. So I promised Bob that we would take questions from the audience. We had one of our organizers said, "Oh, do you really want to do that?" And Bob said, "Bring it on." So anyone have any questions for Bob? There's someone over there.
Hi, nice to see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Jeff Jemmy from Earthshift. Just wondering, how do you change things like gestation crates, beef, sustainable fish, and keep prices as low as you currently have them? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think our vision is that sustainability solutions should be standard operating procedure. So, we're willing to invest and put money into something that down the road we would see being a new norm. Because, unlike other companies, we're not like a grocery store that can just add something on the shelf that's a choice. We have to have just kind of one type of egg. We can't offer free range or, cage-free or, aviary. We got to have one egg, one coffee, So we don't want the consumers to choose because they literally can't choose. So we have to make beef more sustainable and pork more sustainable and eggs. And it's an investment. Probably the example I would give you would be with the eggs. We announced doubling the size of housing for eggs about 10 years ago. And at the time, it cost us a lot of money. And it ends up that the new standards that we put in place have now become the industry norm. So, it might be an extra cost, but it's a cost that is, equal to everybody else. So it's not a competitive disadvantage. That's how we see it. I think, again, the sustainability model, I think too much of sustainability today is being discussed as a niche and a premium and a cost plus. And to me, that's an oxymoron. It's not sustainable then. You're just promoting a niche business. I think in general, we are still niche. So, what we want to do, and I think McDonald's has the power to do so, underneath growing our business by making a positive difference in society, that's what we tell everybody at McDonald's. That's what we're all about. We say underneath that is we're going to mainstream sustainability. We're going to make it every day, within our company and with our consumers and with our stakeholders. It's an aspiration. Fish, I hope, is just the tip of the Alaskan iceberg, where the fish comes from, by the way. Fresh caught Alaskan pollock. More to come.
You have a new career in being a pitchman.
Well, Joel's got all these quips, it's tough to...
It's tough to compete with that. Okay, anybody else out there? Let's see, right over here.
Thank you, Aline Bayard from Footprint Partners. Question, you mentioned that your general counsel has now gotten more involved and you've hired a counsel. How have you gotten your CFO involved? We've heard a lot about integrated reporting this last couple of days and the sort of hurdles to that, and McDonald's has such sway with the analysts, we would think. So what are you doing to help CFO analysts get back on the integrated reporting track, if anything?
Well, the CFO is involved much more so today than he was a couple of years ago because we've engaged, because of our aspirations of what we're doing and the measures and data that we want to get, it's being done probably more from a risk management viewpoint that we need to have really credible data. So now we're engaging our auditor, Ernst & Young, for our financials. So we've engaged them at a very high level and at a cost to the company of engaging in our work. So our work now is on the pathway to trying to be as robust as financial reporting. So we all know that that's early on, but that's how we're treating it in McDonald's. So we've had to go through his committee that goes to the board, which is the auditing committee that he's in charge of from the company perspective. And we're spending lots of money on data auditing and all that. So that gets him involved. I think, whenever I ask him how many questions he's gotten from analysts, he has the same answer that you heard this morning, by the way. So I'm not sure we're that yet on that side of the equation.